So again, thank you everybody for joining tonight's event. This event is focusing on Engineer for the Week, a program led by Facebook. And tonight we're going to go through the Afterschool Alliance's partnership with Facebook over the past year or so. And then we're going to dive into a coding activity led by the Facebook team, Dion and Jen. So jumping right in with some housekeeping. A recording of tonight's presentation will be available to all participants who registered after the event, as well as any resources that are shared will be sent out in an email after this event. If you have any questions for our presenters that you would like to have answered, please use the Q&A box. This just elevates them to the top, though we'll be trying to monitor the chat as much as possible to respond to you there as well. And then to make sure that you're engaging with everyone in attendance, please make sure that you are typing to all panelists and attendees when you're typing in the chat. This makes sure that your fellow participants as well as us panelists can see what you're typing to everybody. This event is just the start of a week-long Lights On After School celebration. Typically, Lights On After School is our awareness event for after-school programs across the country. In a normal year, these events take lots of different forms, many of them in person at after-school and out-of-school time programs. This year, however, with everything going on with COVID-19, the Afterschool Alliance has taken this as an opportunity to celebrate Lights On After School Week instead, though the official Lights On After School Day is later this week. Like I said, this is just the start to many wonderful events that are taking place this week as part of Lights On After School. Other great events include our Youth Town Hall happening on October 22nd at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. An event on social and emotional learning from Wings for Kids on the 20th at 5:30 p.m., amongst many others. The link for signing up for those events can be found at the bottom of this slide, but will also be sent out in our follow-up email. Or feel free to visit the Lights On After School website to see the breadth of events taking place this week. My name is Leah Silverberg. I'm the STEM Projects and Field Outreach Associate at the Afterschool Alliance. And as part of that role at the Afterschool Alliance, I've had the pleasure of working with Facebook and the Engineer for the Week program over the past year. The Afterschool Alliance has been working with Facebook to help recruit programs to participate in Engineer for the Week. And part of the beauty of this partnership has been the shared mission of the Afterschool Alliance and Facebook to really extend and expand STEM opportunities to students that are typically underrepresented in STEM across the country. As part of this initiative, we've also had the pleasure of being able to provide facilitator stipends to programs that have been able to complete the Engineer for the Week program. But there will be more information on that at the end of this webinar, so please stick around. And with that, I'm gonna pass it over to Jen and Dion.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Leah. I am excited to be here today, and thank you so much, Afterschool Alliance, for hosting us. My name is Jen, and I'm joined today with Dion, and we'll introduce ourselves in a little bit. But we're here today to talk about our program, Engineer for the Week. Just a really quick overview of what our agenda is today. I know some of you are asking how long the webinar is, so it will be until 4 p.m. PST/7 p.m. EST. And during the time that we have together today, I'm going to go through a really quick overview and logistics, give some of you an introduction to Engineer for the Week, or EFTW. And then we're going to dive deep into explaining what Games with Purpose are, which is something that we do cover in our program. And then with that, we'll get into a interactive Scratch activity where we'll show you how to actually build a game with purpose. And we definitely encourage as much participation as possible during that time. And then shifting into Q&A, as Leah mentioned, feel free to submit any questions that you have, and then we'll cover some next steps of where we'll go from there at the end. So with that, moving into overview and logistics, wanted to give a quick introduction of myself. I am the program manager for Engineer for the Week at Facebook, and why I am here today. You can see the picture on the left. I grew up with my two sisters. I am the middle child, hence in the middle, and I grew up with a single mom who really cared about education and providing access to resources. And so we moved around a lot growing up, and she always ensured that she sent us to schools that can provide us to different types of culture and activities and learnings. And that's how I became really invested in education. And since working, I was a former high school history teacher, and most recently I worked with students from the Middle East and North Africa, which is a picture on their right, who grew up not with a lot of access to resources and wanted to provide online learning and in-person learning opportunities to them. And so that's why I've been really invested in educational opportunities and why I'm in here today speaking to you all about this opportunity. And with that, I will pass it to Dion for him to introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Hi, everyone. Dion here, really excited to be with all of you. I'm working as an instructional designer for the project Engineer for the Week at Facebook. A little something about me. I grew up in a really small town in Mexico, surrounded by mountains. We didn't really have a lot of good educational opportunities where I grew up in. And to me, the thought that, you know, some kids will be working on some of these projects that we're helping to build is really exciting. I would have loved to have something like that. And now it's my pleasure to contribute to this project for all of you. On the right, I'm a huge fan of hackathons, which are these events where people get together. They form an engineering team, and you try to build something very quickly, usually, you know, within 24 hours, 48 hours. Here I am on the right with my team trying to eat pizza while we help develop a product. And so I think I've always had this idea of engineering very close to my heart, and now I'm really glad to help others learn about the engineering process. All right, so with that, we just want to explain some webinar logistics. We really welcome your participation. So during the entire session, feel free to respond and share your thoughts via the chat window. Just make sure that you do send it to everyone so that everyone can read your messages. We will also ask you to participate in some polls to get to know you a little bit better. During our Q&A session at the end, you can also raise your hand if you would like to participate via audio, and we can call on you and unmute you so you can participate that way as well. And finally, feel free to ask any questions through the Q&A window, and we'll try to answer as many of those as we can towards the end.
Awesome. So we'll get started. If you can just bear with me for 1 second, I am going to do a quick screen switch so that I can see the slides as I speak. That way I'm not looking aside and then you're just seeing the side of my face. So now we're back. All right, awesome. So quick vision of Engineer for the Week. So we are a team at Facebook called the Education Modernization Team. And the vision for our team is that we believe in a world where all learners have equitable access and opportunity to build their futures. And to do that, one of the ways is through Engineer for the Week. And the mission of this program is to support historically underrepresented learners to do 3 things. 1, to explore engineering. 2nd, to develop computer science skills. And 3rd, to gain an awareness of different career paths. So as a whole, this is kind of what we're trying to do with this program. And so specifically how we do that. So the program itself is a 10 to 15 hour program for learners ages 11 to 18. So most likely middle to high school students. And during the program, students work in a group of 3 to 4 using a simple engineering process to build either a chatbot or a game. And we'll show you an example of both of these in a little bit. One special thing that I really like about this program is that the chatbots and the games that they build are usually around a social issue that the students care about. And so we've seen projects that are based on mental health, climate change, and other topics as well. And our program has been around since 2018. And since then, we reached about 450 organizations and schools across the United States. And we're also really excited to be expanding into Latin America this fall to continue to reaching learners across the world. So how does it work? This program, we run it 3 times a year, so spring, summer, and the fall. And to run it, it usually has an adult facilitator, but we don't require any engineering experience, and they lead their groups of students through this program. And I can testify to the no engineering experience because I don't come from a computer science background and I can understand the content. So reassure all of those out there who are interested but don't have engineering experience that it's definitely doable. It can be implemented in person, which has been most of our sites and schools have been implementing in person since 2018. But as you can see with COVID, a lot of our facilitators are also implementing virtually right now or trying out a hybrid model. And to run this program, we provide these facilitators with instructional guides, which I'll also show you in a little bit. We run webinars, which we have one more, and you have an opportunity to also connect with Facebook engineers and win an impact award. So there's a lot of support and resources that we provide for you to run this program. Really quick on the projects, I just want to show you an example of what we mean by a chatbot or a game. So in the 10 to 15 hours, students can make either a chatbot, which is on the left-hand side, and you may have seen this on your Facebook. So a little messenger pops up and it tells you, hello, get started, work with me, and then gives you options, and then you can interact with them by choosing different options. So students can build this using a platform that we provide in order to offer a chatbot on a social issue of their choice. And in this case, you can see this is a bot to give you more information on how to receive assistance. On the right, it's a game, which is what we'll also focus on today, but students can also choose to build a game to share information about issues that they care about, and in this case, it is about the pandemic, which I assume is very timely. And so you may be wondering, how do I do all this? So I'm just going to very quickly show you what this would look like if you were to run this program. So we offer instructional guides that actually guide you through every step, and then we have all the resources. And it's also broken down in a way where you can see how long to spend on what activity. And as a whole, it's about 10 to 15 hours. I would say you're also welcome to kind of take and give away things. So if you already are very familiar with a certain topic, you can skip through it, or if you want to spend more time on it, you can as well. So the way to access this really quick is you can visit our website at engineerfortheweek.fb.com. And once you're here, if you haven't already, we encourage you to click the sign up button in the middle. But if you want to just check out what it's like, you can also click on projects, which will bring you to exactly what I was just talking about. So either the chatbot or the game. If you're more interested in the chatbot, you can click here and it will give you access to the facilitator or the learner guide. I would encourage you to have both open as you explore, but probably start with the facilitator guide because it will actually give you all the information that you need to run this program as a facilitator. I'm just going to pause here and see if Dion has anything to add because I've been speaking a lot.
No, this is great, Jen. This is very helpful to see.
Awesome. All right. So yeah, that's the instructional guide. So if any of you are interested in the program, definitely encourage you to check it out from our website and go to the projects page. So with that, I would love to pass it over to Dion to go deeper into the games project.
All right. So as Jen showed you, one of our projects at Engineer for the Week guides you through building a game with purpose. And so you might be wondering, what is a game with purpose, right? So games with purpose go one step further than regular games in that they try to address topics that matter to us, and they try to create a positive change in the world. So for example, game with purpose could encourage players to learn more about how the refugee crisis is affecting many families around the world. Or they could take a complex issue like climate change and make it easier to understand by turning it into a game. So among other things, oh, sorry, Jen, one last one. Games with purpose can help us experience someone else's perspective, practice a responsible behavior, and also learn about and reflect on an important issue. So there's really a lot you can do with games with purpose. And so as you might be wondering, well, there are some principles actually that go into building a game. And so we call these game design principles, and it's something that we cover in the guides. I think it's probably one of the most exciting parts of the guides maybe for youth, is working on these. And so Jen is going to share what these principles look like in the guides, and we can go one by one. So goal is the objective of that game, right? So it's what do you have to do to win or complete a game? And if you don't have a clear goal, then users can quickly become confused, and that's not great because usually they'll stop playing the game. Mechanics are the actions that a player can take in the game. So for example, jumping, running, moving around, collecting coins. This really gives life to your game. Space is where the action of the game takes place. So what captivating backgrounds do you bring to the game? How will this space create the mood for your game? So if you've played something like Super Mario Bros., you can probably close your eyes and imagine what that looks like. You've got a really sort of sunny space at the top where Mario starts out, and then you can also go down the pipes and go into this darker, more mysterious world below. Components are the pieces necessary to play a game. So this includes things like enemies, allies, rewards, obstacles. And finally, the rules are the instructions that all players have to follow to play the game. So it really helps to know what is possible and what is not possible in a game. And again, if this is not clear to your players, then they'll have a hard time playing the game. So now that you know a little bit about game design theory, we want to show an example of a game with purpose we created on Scratch, which you'll soon learn about, called Save the Planet. And we want you to play for about 3 minutes and see how far you get. So we're going to share the link in there. And maybe one of you will even beat the game in that time. It's a little bit challenging, but let me just add it to the chat window here. Give me 1 second. All right, so there it is. So if you can, take about 3 minutes to play this game, and we'd love to get your thoughts right afterwards. So we're going to start the timer. And this might be your first introduction to Scratch, which we'll soon talk more about. We've just hit the 1 minute mark, so 2 more minutes to go. Hopefully you're saving the planet. All right, 30 seconds more. And time. So if you'd like to share via the chat window, sort of what did you feel playing these games? Had you ever played a game with purpose before? Anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, so curious. And if this game was easy, was it hard? I definitely found that it was a little hard playing for the first time. So really curious to see all of your thoughts. Feel free to share directly in the chat.
So we have some comments that the chat maybe is disabled, so we'll try to keep an eye on the Q&A. We've got some comments. I loved it. Yes, it was hard. All right, great. So this is an example of something that really doesn't take that long to build, because in this case, we've remixed an existing project, which means that we've taken a project that someone else built and we've sort of repurposed it to address a topic that matters to us, right? Oh, here we go. More chat comments. I kept dying to the cloud. It got progressively harder. Yeah, so that's a big thing, right? And so an important part of a game, I think youth get really excited about this, is to not make it so easy that you can beat it right away, but also not make it super hard so that you get frustrated and maybe abandon the game. So somewhere in the middle. It's challenging, but also, you know, it's easy to learn, hard to master. Awesome. So some really nice comments there. So Jen is actually going to share a poll to learn a little bit more about you. And so, Jen, would you like me to? Oh, here we go. I see the poll now, so you should see it as well. If you'd be so kind just to select your experience with Scratch. So how familiar are you with this?
Awesome. I see some results coming in. I will end the poll now, since we have a majority of the results, and share the results with everyone. And it seems like more than half of you have not heard of it before, which is awesome because we're going to share about it. But it does seem like quite a few of you are either extremely familiar with it or have tried it out a little bit, which is also really good. So feel free to help each other out in the chat as we go through the activity. It's also good to know that you've already heard about it as well. So that means that there's definitely an interest in Scratch itself. So great. We can jump right into our Scratch activity. And before I get started, definitely want to just reiterate something that I saw in the chat. I believe that Marina had just mentioned that Marina loved it. It had all the components of a simple but challenging game, and wanted to just share that, yes, a game can be pretty simple and straightforward to build, and also get your students quite excited about the challenging components of it. And as I go through this, please feel free to interact with the chat. I'm going to ask all of you quite a few questions as we go through it. And so Dion will be monitoring the chat to share out what he sees so far. So what we're going to do today is we're going to build a simple games with purpose. And it is going to require us all to work together. So to get started, you will visit the Scratch website, which is scratch.mit.edu. And once you're on this page, you will click Create to get started. And this will bring you to this panel that you will see. There's kind of three major sections to this page. So you'll see on the left-hand side, this is what we call a blocks palette. And you'll see that it allows you to build different code using block-based programming. And you'll see each section allows you to do different things. So there's motion, it can change looks, it can change things sound. In the middle, this is what we call the scripts area. So we'll be dragging these code into the scripts area. And what it actually does is going to be on the right-hand side, which is our stage, where this cat is currently. And you can also full screen your stage if you wanted to see it easier. So let's just get started with the simple code with motion. And so you'll see here, this is the first code that I'm just going to drag into our scripts area. And if I click on it, you'll see what happens to the cat on the right-hand side. So as I'm clicking on it, you'll notice that the cat is moving to the right-hand side. So it's as simple as that. In terms of the game, as Dion mentioned, if you remember, there's 5 different game design principles, and one of which is the components. So you'll see here our character, this cat, is one of the components of our game. And we can always add new components. So let's add a new component by coming here. And on Scratch, it's called a sprite. And you can choose a sprite. And it's lovely because Scratch has this enormous media library of things that you can choose from. And so I'm going to just choose an octopus. Look how cute it is. Okay, an octopus. And we want to have the octopus be able to do different things here. So one of the most common mechanics of a game is to be able to move your character in different directions. So we want to be able to move this octopus to the left, to the right, up, and down. And so the way that we will do this is coming to the blocks palette here and trying to find something that will allow us to do it. So if we come to the events category, we'll see that there is a block that says when something is pressed, when space key is pressed. Typically, if you press the right arrow key on your keyboard, you expect your character or your octopus to move to the right-hand side. So which blocks category here do you think we will be able to find something that will allow the octopus to move? So which category of this list do you think I'll be able to find something that allows the octopus to move?
All right, we've got motion from a few people. You are correct.
That was so fast. I was gonna pause. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so we're gonna have motion here, and you can move 10. Let's just do 10 steps. So you can't see me right now, but as I press the right button on my keyboard, this octopus is moving. All right. So we want this octopus to do more than that, right? So we want the octopus to also move to the left. So I'm going to just drag the same code here. And from this drop down, I'm going to choose the left arrow. And we'll want the octopus to move to the left. If I take the same block here and press my left arrow key, it's still moving to the left, right. What do you think I should be doing? So whether I press the right or the left, it seems like it's going in the same direction. Can anyone help me out here or know what I can do?
All right, so we've got some ideas. Some people are hinting at the coordinate plane, some negative numbers in there. So yeah, so what happens if we do some negative numbers, Jen?
That is amazing. Yeah, so if we change this one to a -10, let's see what happens. So now I'm going to press my left arrow key, and yay, our octopus is now moving to the left. And so whoever had mentioned the coordinate planes that Dion had mentioned, you're correct. So basically in this area on our stage, it's almost like a coordinate plane where there's an x-axis and a y-axis. And in the center of it all is our origin, so our 0, 0. And so if we wanted to move to the right, we are basically changing x by 10. So I'm just going to switch this out. And then for our left arrow, we'll be changing x by a -10, as you all had just shared. Okay, let's move to our y-axis here, so moving up and down. So if we want to move this octopus up, which block should I choose from here to move the octopus up? Feel free to, directly type in the chat.
All right, so I'm going to read some options here. We could, again, set some x to a value. We could change the x value by a certain amount. We could change the y value by a certain amount. And Marina says, move y by 10. Is that correct, Jen?
Awesome. Yeah, that is absolutely correct. So if I change y, that is our vertical axis. And if we move it by 10, now I'm pressing my up button and our octopus is moving upwards. So similarly, let's do our last one. We want to move the octopus downwards. So we're going to choose our last arrow, down arrow, and we're going to find change y. And instead of the 10, what number should be here right now?
And we have an answer from Jeffrey, -10. Let's try that out.
Awesome. All right, so I am pressing the down button, and now our octopus, you can kind of see the code glimmer a little bit as I'm pressing my button. It means that it's working and it's reflected in the code here. So that is great. So we have a component of our game. These are our mechanics. Let's add some more components to this game. So let's remove the cat for now. We'll just delete it. Sorry, cat. As a cat owner, that makes me very sad. But let's give the octopus a friend. So we'll choose a star here. And what we want to do here is for the octopus to try to catch this star. So that is the goal of our game, the objective. But I think it's a little bit easy right now if the star doesn't move. So this octopus would catch the star pretty quickly. So we'll want the star to move in a way that will make it more challenging for the octopus to catch it. So under the motion category, you'll find one of the code here, which is glide 1 second to a random position. And so if I click on this code, what you'll notice is that our star now is moving to a random position on the stage area, which makes it harder for the octopus to grab.
Yeah, and it looks, Jen, like it looks like when you run it, it moves to a random position, but it stays there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
so it sounds like we would want to keep it going so that it's always moving around.
Great. I love the challenge aspect in you. So let's make it a little bit more challenging. So how can we move the star forever? We want the star to always be moving. So in your blocks palette, you'll notice one of the category is the control. And one of our code is the forever. Sounds a little bit scary, but it just means that it will always be moving forever. So if I click on this now, I am no longer touching my mouse and it's just continuously moving. But Dion, something that is hard is that my players are not going to be able to click on my code to activate this. So
Yeah.
what should they do?
Well, if we notice right above the stage, there are two buttons. There's a green flag and there's a sort of red stop sign. So it sounds like players, when they first join this, they can actually trigger the game by clicking on the green flag. So why don't we try to find a block that starts the game with a when green flag clicked?
Great, yeah. So under the events category, the very first one here is when green flag is clicked. And so if I drag this to my block here, it basically tells me that when the green flag is clicked, this star is going to forever move to a random position on the stage. So if you see here, now whenever a player comes to my game, not only does the star move forever, makes it super challenging, I can use my arrow keys to now move my octopus up and down to try to catch the star.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, Jen, but when you first learned how easy it was to create like even just an object moving around the stage, I was pretty amazed by it. I always thought sort of creating games would be this very complex engineering process, and it turns out it's pretty simple.
Yeah, I have to admit, I just learned this a few days ago while preparing for this presentation. So I would definitely say that it's been super simple to learn how to build a game. I think game itself, when we think about it, can be really hard, but it's definitely a lot easier than we think. Okay, let's do one last thing here. So with the octopus touching the star, maybe we want the octopus to say something, to interact with the star, since the goal is to catch it. So what are some things that I can do here, Dion, in order to indicate that I've caught the star?
Yeah, so we need some kind of control block that would sort of always be listening to what happens in the game. And so what about an if-then statement? So that's something that allows you to check for a condition. So if something happens, then I want my program to do something else, but only if that happens. So in this case, what could that if block be?
So I want whenever the octopus senses the star, so I would go to the sensing category. So whenever the octopus touches the star, so I would just drag it right here. If the octopus touches not the mouse, not the edge, but the star, I wanted to say something. So which category do you all think would allow me to indicate the speech or the looks of this game?
And Mila has it here with a bunch of others, and it's looks. Yes.
I may have accidentally shared it in my discussion, but yes, look. So if the octopus, so we're under the octopus right now, touches the star, then we want it to say something for 2 seconds. What do we want it to say? What would be some cool ideas here?
Someone said gotcha, which is pretty cool. Hi star, what's up? What's up? Different variations of what's up. Success, okay. I did it. So, all right. Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, awesome. And then before we try this out, remember when we were doing this, it only happened once unless we added this forever loop. So we just want to make sure that the octopus always says it and not just for the first time. So we just want to add one more of these around here so that whenever, every single time the octopus touches a star, it will say this. And what's one thing that's kind of missing here, Dion?
So I noticed that for the star sprite, you have the game running when you click on the green flag, but I don't see the same for the octopus.
All right, so let's add that as well, so that whenever the green flag is clicked, if the octopus touches a star, it will say, gotcha, hi star, for 2 seconds forever.
And Jen, before we run it, can we add maybe something for space?
Oh yeah, so one of the game design principles is the look of the game. And so Scratch is really cool. So on the right bottom hand side, you'll see that you can choose a backdrop. for your game. And again, it has a really awesome library of all these different backdrops. So let's just choose something where they might be, like the ocean. And now our game looks like it's underwater. So we can now try this out. You'll see that there's our octopus, there's our star, and whenever I start the game by clicking the green flag, our star is going to start moving to random places, and I am going to...
Yes,
Yeah,
got it.
Got it. It's cute, guys. It's gotcha, and then hi. Like, I got you, but hello. So we just built a super simple game, and it can be a little bit challenging because the star is randomly moving. So let me just pause here and go back inside our code. One thing that I am curious about though, Dion, I think I mentioned that Engineer for the Week, something that I love about it is that we build games that have social purpose and social value. What's something that I can do here to make this of social value?
So the other day you were sort of telling me about how important it is to go out and vote if you can. And what if we converted this to something that would encourage players to think about voting in this really, really important time?
Yeah, so something that's really cool about Scratch is that you can change the way that our components or our sprites look. And so now I'm clicking on the octopus and I can come to costumes on the top left-hand side. And you can see that it has quite a few costumes, but we don't want any of these. We want something that's related to voting. So you can actually upload your own.
And
so
Mila actually proposed a ballot game, which is exactly what we're going to build.
Really? No.
Yeah.
How did you read our minds? Okay, so yeah, that's what we're gonna do. So I'm going to change the octopus into an envelope or a ballot. Why is it called a ballot, by the way? That's strange.
Oh, so this is an interesting fact I learned recently. So it comes from the 16th century in Italy, in which you used to have small balls of different colors to cast a vote. So if the ball was a certain color, it meant you were in favor of something. And if it was a different color, it meant you were opposed to it. So at the end of the day, they would count all the balls of the same color. And the color that had more pieces would actually determine the outcome of the election. So that's something you can share with others. I think that's something I learned recently, which I thought was really interesting.
That's awesome. Yeah, so now I have my ballot. It's a little bit big, so I'm going to adjust the size here to a smaller number so that it fits on our screen. And then I'm also going to do the same for my star and try to change this into a ballot box. And it's also quite big, so let me just adjust this. What's something else I should change? It looks a little bit odd still.
So yeah, why is it underwater? Like, does anyone vote underwater? At least not that I know of.
Never know these days.
Maybe in the future they'll have some suits where you can vote underwater.
Yeah, all right, let me change the backdrop a little bit. Maybe let's vote in the city. So we will try to find a backdrop. And now we have a game where we are trying to, oh wait, just kidding. What's something else? Let me just come here real quick. What's something else that we would want to change? So right now, looking at the screen here at the code, what's something that you think we can probably change in order to make it about voting?
The gotcha part. Yeah, it would be very awkward if it said gotcha when you voted. Like that doesn't make any sense. So let's change that to any ideas here? Marina says, I voted. How about you? Or thank you for voting.
I love that. All right, I voted. How about you? I love the call to action, not just I voted, but what about you? So now we have a game where when I click on this green flag, the vote box is moving around. It might just actually come to me. Um, but there you go. When I touch it, it says, I voted. How about you? And here is our very quick, simple, and challenging game that has a social purpose.
And then Jen, can we show like how you would share this project? We might even share the link if you want to try it out.
Yeah, so I am going to share the link of the project in our chat so you all can actually just interact with it. But while I'm on here, I'll just also add that you can add the rules of your game here. So when you share this with other people, you can just type in your instructions. Let's say use arrow keys to cast your ballot into the ballot box. And I'm going to just send this link directly into our chat right now. And you will actually be able to just play this game or share with anyone else that may be interested.
And then one more thing, which is if you now get the link and you click on the button see inside and you have a Scratch account, you can actually then remix it, which means to take the existing code and to create a new project. And so you could modify the elements, you could add new sprites, you could change the code blocks. So it's a really neat community, I think. Scratch, I don't know if you guys know this, but there are about 52 million projects published last time I checked. So it's a huge community, lots of learners, lots of educators are using this to teach about engineering. And so we find it really exciting that some of you may be visiting it for the first time.
Yeah, so with that, I think it might be a cool time to transition into some Q&A, and wanted to just remind you all that you can type your questions in the Q&A section. And yeah, I'll pass it to Leah.
Yeah, I'll give everybody a minute to post any questions in the Q&A section that they might have or in the chat. But while we're waiting for some questions to come in, someone asked, why should students be interested in being an engineer?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I'm going to try to take a stab at it because I saw it in the beginning. I was like, yes, these are the questions we love. So this is really core to our program. I mean, if you think of all the products that exist in the world, they were all sort of designed to fit a need. And a really neat thing about becoming an engineer is that you can create a change in the world by developing something that has an impact on people's lives. So it could be really small or it could be really big. And in EFTW, you learn about how anyone can really learn how to design, develop, and test a project that has purpose, that is built with empathy, and that identifies an issue that you want to help address. So I think that's maybe one of the reasons. And another I can think of is that it's a really fun experience to work as an engineering team, developing something. So it's like also, I think, something social and something that you build with others.
Right. Another question that just came in, are Engineer for the Week projects individual submissions or are they submissions from teams?
That's a great question. Yeah, so we encourage students to work in groups of 3 to 4 to build one project together. And there's many reasons for that, but 2 of which, one is, as you can see, if the game gets really complicated, there's a lot of components to it. So you want to make sure that you can kind of divide up the work and work together. And second is when you actually work as an engineer, you'll notice that you oftentimes work in teams and you want to be able to leverage your strengths. You may be really good at something and work together with other engineers to build a finished product. So that really simulates what happens in the real world. And so we encourage students to work in teams. And so they submit projects in teams based on their group.
So another question that came in, do you have to join a Google Classroom for this, or is it even a class? And maybe just expanding on that, who runs EFTW programs?
That's a great question. Dion, do you want to take the first one?
Sure. Yeah, so we really built the guides so they're as accessible as possible. We've actually spent a lot of time thinking about how to make the resources accessible. So you can actually run the program by simply visiting the guide, which is available online. You don't need to be signed in necessarily to Google Classroom. All of the project resources are linked to a Google Drive folder. So the only requirement is that if you don't have one already, you set up a Gmail account so you can access Google Drive. And then from there on, you can really just visit the guides as Jen is showing. There's really no barriers to entry here. And then in some cases, like in Chatbots for Change, we'll show you how to set up your dev environment to create a chatbot using Chatfuel and Facebook. In Play for Impact, you'll be using Scratch to develop your game, which you just learned about. So really, you can facilitate it any way you find convenient. It could be through Zoom, it could be through Google Classroom, or any other tool really that you have available.
Yeah, and who typically runs it? I would say since running it since 2018, we've seen a lot of after-school program coordinators that come from all sorts of different backgrounds. We have nonprofit organization coordinators that are running it this time around, and sometimes you also see some teachers in the classroom who either teach computer science or run an after-school club. We do have a closed Facebook group, so if you are interested in running EFTW, you can ask to join the group, and then you'll have access to everyone else who's also running it and ask questions in that space.
Yeah, and Jen, would you mind showing the sign up button again, just because I think a lot of people miss it when they first visit the guides. And so the first step, if you're a facilitator and you want to join, is to simply click on sign up as a facilitator. And as Jen mentioned a little while ago, you have the facilitator guide for educators and you have the learner guide for youth who want to develop these projects.
Yeah,
so it's very, very easy to sign up.
Awesome. And I know Leah's sharing a link in there as well. Here is how you will sign up. And if you do sign up through this form, I just encourage you all here, how did you hear about EFTW, to just select After School Alliance so that we know kind of where you heard about this program. Or you can use the direct link that Leah's sharing in the chat as well.
So I think we'll take maybe one or two more questions. One question that came in through the Q&A is, does Scratch have any resources for younger students as an intro to coding?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Scratch is a phenomenal community. It actually has quite a bit of tutorials. So if you go to ideas and then you click on choose a tutorial, you can actually get started from zero. So no previous programming experience required. So we found these tutorials. We actually recommend a few of these in the guides because they're so great. And they guide you through videos and steps. And this is a great way to get started, I think.
And something may look a little familiar here as you get started, right in the middle of my screen right now.
Any last questions before we dive into the last section? That was a great question, Ada. Is this free?
Awesome. Yeah. So Scratch is a free resource, and Engineer for the Week is also a free program. So there's no cost to participating. You just have to sign up like I showed you before. And you'll start getting all the resources in your email on how to actually take advantage of the program.
And I'll say one fun thing too. At the end, when learners complete their projects, they submit it to Facebook, and there's a chance there to win an award and also obtain a certificate of completion. So we also have some fun incentives for youth to go through the experience and actually submit it, and then we'll be showcasing some of those learner projects on the website.
Yeah, so the Impact Award is once you submit your projects, a team at Facebook actually goes through all the projects that are submitted, and we grade them against a rubric that we share with you as well in the guides. And the highest rated projects will then actually give $1,000 to the group of students for them to donate to a nonprofit of their choice to further incentivize them to build social value. And so these are the three on our website, are the three winning projects from spring 2020. And all three of these have received $1,000 to donate to another nonprofit of their choice. So with that, I will just share that here's our website and here is our email if you do have any other questions or want to participate. And I'll just send these in the chat as well. And then I will pass it back to Leah to close us off for today.
Thank you, Jen. Hopefully you're all now seeing my screen. Aside from the incentives provided by the Facebook team for participation, there are a couple benefits of participating through the After School Alliance. So making sure that you are saying that you heard about the Engineer for the Week program from us or using that specific link that I posted in the chat. One of those incentives is the After School Alliance is going to be awarding $500 to the first 10 programs that complete the project. And then the second 10 programs after that are eligible to receive $200 for their participation and submission of a final project. Thank you to Facebook, we're able to provide this kind of incentive directly to programs that participate. And then just a final note before we sign off for the night, I know that we're coming right up on the hour, is that everyone who was able to join us tonight is now going to be entered into a raffle for a $25 gift card. So hopefully 4 of the members of the audience that were able to come tonight will be entered in that raffle. So keep an eye on your email for the recording of this webinar and then to see if you are one of the winners. Other than that, thank you so much for participating in tonight's event. Jen, Dion, anything else you want to say before signing off?
I just want to thank everyone again for joining us. It was such a fun experience, and we hope to see some projects submitted soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great night.
Bye. Have a good night.